Good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting to order. If I could please have roll call.
Commissioner Isiano,
Here.
Commissioner Fajardo,
Present.
Commissioner Lopez,
Present.
Vice Chairperson Franz,
Here.
and Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja is absent today.
Okay. We could please rise and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Nico, if you would lead us.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move on to item number 5. Do we have any public comment from items not on the agenda?
There are none.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll move on to public hearing items. Oh, no, I skipped a spot, didn't I?
Yes,
did.
actually, we do need to go backwards. We do need to do rotation of chairperson and vice
I
chairperson.
missed it.
So if in this instance, the normal rotation pattern is that the vice chairperson becomes the chairperson, and the person next in line, which would be the most third senior person, or second senior person, is Commissioner Lopez. So at this time, the normal practice is the proverbial handing of the gavel. You already have the gavel. So at this point, we would note for the record that both Vice Chairperson Franz and Commissioner Lopez have accepted their respective responsibilities for Chairperson and Vice Chairperson, and we would formalize the rotation through just notation in the minutes this evening. So with that, if you're happy to do your new duties, we welcome you, and then once you have accepted that, and we note it for the record, we would ask for a brief 5-minute recess to allow the resetting of the nameplates. So once that is done, please give us that 5 minutes.
We accept and we'll take a 5-minute recess. Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and bring the meeting back to order at 6:06 PM and move on to public hearing items. Item 6.1, request for conditional approval of tentative partial map to subdivide 14 acres of partial land. We can have staff report, please.
Good evening, Commissioners and Chairperson Franz. My name is Nico Gatron, Planning Technician with the Community Development Department. Today I will present the project, The Palms at Indio, tentative parcel map 2207416. The project applicant, I-10 Monroe LLC and Rothbard Development Corporation, are proposing a subdivision into 13 separate parcels within the 14-acre parcel located at Assessor Parcel Number 610-330-027. The property carries a general plan designation of regional commercial and is zoned within the Pacific Indio Development Agreement. The proposed project site is located east of Monroe and south of Buena Vista Avenue, near the major crossing streets of Avenue 42 and Monroe Street. The tentative parcel map identifies the subdivision into 13 separate parcels, ranging from gross acreage sizes of 0.61 acres to 2.73 acres. The staff analysis is the project is compliant with the City of Indio General Plan 2040 and the Pacific Indio Development Agreement, as well as the Subdivision Map Act. With relevant conditions of approval, the project can be approved, and with conditions of approval being binding and must be adhered to. I did wanted to note for the public record, the applicant requested to challenge items on the conditions of approval. Upon review of the requests and discussion with the agencies that impose the conditions, staff has submitted a revised resolution that is available to you via a memo and will be uploaded into the public comments for this meeting online. The project applicant is available via Zoom for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of staff at this time? No? Okay, we'd like to open up the public hearing, and we'd like to hear from the applicant. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, then we can hear you.
That's a yes. Good evening, County Commissioners. My name is Stanley Rothbard. I'm the developer and owner of the Palms at Indio, project that we've been working on for many, many years. And we're very excited to bring aspects of it to you tonight. Tonight we're here for a tentative parcel map approval. And we've read the staff report and accept the conditions of approval with two exceptions. The first, the first is item number 26, which we would ask to be deleted. We are constructing a power line extension, which will accommodate our next phase of development, which consists of 4 QSRs and possibly one additional one. And therefore, the specifics in condition 26 don't really apply to us. And then we would also ask that condition number 28 be deleted, since it goes with condition number 26. I'm happy to explain further if you have questions. Other than that, we accept the conditions of approval.
Do we have any questions of the applicant? No? Okay, I do have one. So may I ask why the breakup? This is a very large project. Like you've mentioned, you've been working on this for a very long time. So is there any particular reason for wanting to break up the parcel?
Well, there are multiple smaller users. This is a very large piece. This was what was previously the Lowe's piece, 13.5 acres. And we've been negotiating deals with lots of QSRs, quick service restaurants. So In-N-Out will be one of the tenants. So we have to break up the parcels into a more usable size for our tenants. So
Okay.
typically, restaurant tenants comprise somewhere between 1 and 2 acres. And you'll notice one will go to Raising Cane's, parcel 2 would go to In-N-Out, parcel 3 will go to Sumo Dog, and on and on. We're negotiating with many other tenants, but now we want to get underway with these particular tenants because they are anxious to build and open in India.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions of the applicant at this time?
Chair, just for the record, staff has no objection to the applicant's request for the removal of the reference conditions. So again, for the record, no objection. If the commission does choose to strike those conditions in their adopting action, you just need to note it for the record.
I actually was going to ask staff to maybe explain a little more for those of us that are not professional electricians or whatever this is called.
So the conditions that are in there pertain to two actions that the Imperial Irrigation District, or IID, is asking that be applied as conditions of approval. The first is construction of a substation as a tentative map action that does not necessarily lead to any development. It is just parcelization of the land. Staff does not believe that this condition is necessary. Also, the line extension that is referred to as the second condition, that is actually already being done by the applicant to support the business development that he referenced on his property. So for that reason, we see those conditions as unnecessary. And obviously, as projects come forward, and the need for electrical service is considered, they do have to go through a process with IID that is separate from the city process. But in this instance, we believe that the conditions are unnecessary.
That makes a little more sense to me. Thank you. Any other questions of the applicants or staff at this time? No?
The resolution helped me.
Okay, good. All right, do we have anyone in the public that would like to speak on this item? I don't have any requests.
There are no comments.
Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing then at this time, and we can move to deliberations. Does anybody have any questions, or is there a motion? No questions? Anybody want to try the motion? Can we put the motion up on the, there we go.
There.
I'll go ahead and like to motion that we approve Resolution 2076, recommending the City Council the conditional approval of tentative parcel map number 38417 to subdivide 14-acre parcel. Question? Of land into 13 separate parcels of land located at Assessor's Parcel number 610-330-027, and certifying that the project was previously analyzed by the Environmental Impact Report number 90.1 for the Pacific Indio Project Area, the EIR, pursuant to the CEQA guidelines, section 15153.
Are you going to add the, are we going to approve removal of conditions A26 and A28 as requested by the applicant?
I'd like to also include the language that we also strike from the requirements, item numbers 25 and 28,
A26 and 28.
or 26 and 28 is noted, with no objections.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. A motion and a second. Can we get a vote, please?
Commissioner Isiano,
Yes.
Commissioner Fajardo,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Lopez,
Yes.
Chairperson Franz,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you, everyone. We will now continue with public hearing item 6.2, a request for approval of conditional use permit and planning permit for land use entitlements on Highway 111 for an 8-pump gas station. If we could please have presentation by staff.
Good evening, Commissioners. Congratulations, Chair and Vice Chairperson. Look forward to working with you in the upcoming year and this evening. So this item is not a new item. It has been before you last summer on July 26th. You heard about this initially, and just a reminder, at that time, we went through the public hearing process, and you elected to continue this item and ask the applicant to address the conditions of approval that staff had identified that needed to be addressed before the commission would consider making a recommendation to the city council. So that is why we're back. There were several continuances as the applicant worked to refine the project. We worked with them over those iterations, and I'll get into it further, but just to note for the record that staff does believe that they have addressed all of the outstanding conditions fully and would be in a position if the commission chose to consider making a recommendation to city council. So with that, I will go back through the project for the benefit of the commission and the public and remind you what this is. So again, this is a conditional use permit, planning review permit, land use entitlements. This is for a new convenience market and fuel station project that would be on a triangular piece of land, so regular shaped, at the intersection of Flower, Requa, and Indio Boulevard. As you go east towards the city boundary with Coachella, you may note it that there is a very large self-storage facility immediately south of this. That's often kind of a landmark, if you will. So this property is covered by the Highway 11 Corridor specific plan and is subject to regulatory review under that. It is also what is called a limited land use, and for the benefit of the commission and the viewing public and those in attendance, a limited land use is something that is identified as requiring an extra level of review. This was decided by the city council when they adopted the Highway 11 Corridor specific plan. And what that means is that, well, typically you would be the final decision-making body on actions like this. In the Highway 11 Corridor specific plan, certain limited land uses, and those include car washes, those include convenience markets, gas stations, and drive-through restaurants, you are in a recommending body to the city council, and they have elected to be the final decision maker. So your action this evening would be in the form of a recommendation, whatever that recommendation may be, to the city council for their consideration, which will be reviewed through a separate public hearing process at a later date. So again, this project is come before you. They've been working on it to address your direction for addressing those conditions, and we'll continue to get into this a little further. So as a reminder, this is the location, a triangular piece of land. Again, Flower Street, Requa, and Indio Boulevard are the adjacent public streets. It's an area that is kind of an interesting area, if you will. It's pocketed by some various land uses. We have commercial, we have industrial. The commercial is comprised of office and retail, as well as service businesses such as auto repair. So the applicant has been working on revisions, and on November 28th, they submitted updated plans. Those were attached to the agenda report that is included in your packet, your electronic packet this evening. And what this shows is that the applicant is proposing approximately 3,000 square foot convenience market. That is fronting along Flower Street. It is close to the corner of the intersection of Flower and Requa. There is a fuel station canopy. That fuel station would provide gasoline pump stations, in total of 6, plus 2 electrical vehicle charging stations. There is a portion of the site that is at the southern end of that is slated for future development. The applicant is not certain what that will be, and that will be subject to future review separate from this. So the only item before you this evening is the convenience market and fuel station. And again, if there is a determination to bring back a future user for that future development area, the applicant would have to come back before this body and also this city council, depending on the nature of the use. Again, if it was in those limited land use categories, you would be reviewing it and advising the council. If it's not a limited land use, you would be the decision maker in that future development area. So one of the areas that the commission wanted more information on was landscaping, and the applicant has gone back and enhanced its landscape plan. They are looking at desert appropriate landscaping, which is something that the Highway 11 Corridor specific plan calls for. And there's a variety of desert appropriate landscaping proposed as evidence on the landscape plan here on the screen and also in your packet. The roof plan is shown here, and the applicant does have roof-mounted mechanical equipment that will be screened, and also has a fairly interesting canopy design with exposure points that are shown on this particular elevation, this particular plan. And the variety of materials, you can get kind of an inkling of that in the upper right-hand corner. We'll get into that in a minute in terms of the various materials that they're using. But you will see that they are kind of using a combination of what I will call bold materials that will bring visual attention to their project. So here is the elevation. One of the things that you will see again is that this is a single story, the Communities Market is a single story flat roof structural design, kind of a mid-century modern design, if you will. And then the fuel canopy uses kind of a flared covered design with openings for allowing light to get through. So it is a kind of a mid-century themed overall design thematic. They're using both glass and metal and aluminum to highlight different architectural features of the building, and I will go into that. But these elevations kind of give you different reference points. Here are project renderings, and I think this exemplifies what I was talking about earlier with the mid-century design. These are renderings, so they may not actually show the end user. They are showing certain businesses within this, whether or not those are the businesses or not. But what these renderings do show is their intent to comply with the overall intent for the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan, which is inviting pedestrians into the site, so they have multiple pedestrian connections into the site, making sure that there is a combination of glass and other materials. Now, the elevation in the right-hand corner is facing from Flower Street. That's back-of-store operations, so working with the applicant, they tried to balance the back-of-store operations with the need for some what we call facade fenestration or the use of glass material. And staff believes that they've done an appropriate job to meet the intent of the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan. They have really maximized the use of the glass and other building elevations to create an overall kind of welcoming, glass-oriented visual aesthetic for the building. So staff went through and analyzed this, and this is consistent with the initial analysis that was done on July 22nd. We found them generally compliant, either compliant straight out or could be compliant with the application of conditions of approval. Again, on July 26th, the commission directed the applicant to go back and address the 26 outstanding conditions of approval that staff had identified that needed to be addressed before City Council. So again, as I noted earlier, we worked through several iterations of that. There were several meetings between myself and the applicant team. And ultimately, the applicant resubmitted on November 28th, and staff conducted a thorough review of their resubmittal and found that they were compliant. So, key considerations for the commission. As always, the applicant has the burden of proof to demonstrate that they're compliant with the adopted regulations, in this case, the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan. Again, it's a limited land use, so what that means is that you are the recommending body and the council is the decision-making body. The major area of compliance is compliance with the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan. The project does not fully comply, so that's why there are recommended conditions of approval that would apply. They've met the test for the conditions, in staff's opinion, they've met the test for the conditions that needed to be addressed per the commission's recommendation, but there are other conditions as they go throughout the development of the site. And some of those conditions that were contained in the conditions that they needed to address before they went to City Council, staff has actually converted into standing conditions. So for example, they need to demonstrate compliance with trash enclosure requirements. They need to demonstrate compliance with the pedestrian connectability requirements. So we carried those forward and made them general conditions of approval to make sure that there is ongoing compliance and that we have the authority when if the project is built out, to actually enforce against those conditions. And again, the applicant did resubmit on November 28th. So you have several options as the recommending body. One, you can recommend conditional approval. That is the staff recommendation. Two, you can recommend denial. Or three, you can continue the public hearing to a date and time certain and ask more information of the applicant or staff. Again, staff is recommending conditional approval. We feel that the applicant has met the substantial burden of proof and that the project can be approvable with either straight out or with application of conditions. So with that, we're recommending you approve resolution number 2055, and I'm happy to answer any questions. The applicant is in attendance physically this evening, and we'll be happy to answer any questions, and I believe they have a short presentation as well. So with that, happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of staff at this time? No? Okay, we'll open the public hearing, and we'll invite the applicant to step up to the podium, please.
Hayward Purdue, PBLA Engineering, we were land planners and civil engineers. We'd like to thank the commission for their patience in this as we work through the process, and also thank the department and Mr. Schneider for guiding us to the 111 specific plan adherence. I think Kevin did a great job proposing the project. We're here to certainly answer any questions you guys have.
Okay, thank
And we
you.
have the material board here, so feel free to take a look.
Thank you.
We are more than, we're certainly in acceptance of the conditions as proposed.
Okay, does anybody have any questions of the applicant at this time?
So we're just looking at that as far as materials. Do you have any additions to the presentation that Director Snyder made?
I don't believe so. I think we're looking forward to a downtown Indio development project, but I think Kevin did a great job explaining the project.
Do you have any questions? Okay, I have one question. We're always very, very concerned with mechanical equipment and roof, and I love the look of the building, and it is a flat roof, but staff mentioned that it is going to be roof-mounted material. So how is that gonna?
Yeah, I think it's only an architectural question. I think what we really eventually landed on was ground level equipment, either screened by landscaping or a subterranean, and acknowledge that we can't really have a parapet type wall on this roof.
Okay, Kevin, is that what?
So the applicant, through the approval process, will have to, one of the conditions is they have to demonstrate compliance to the Highway 11 Corridor specific plan requirements as it pertains to roof-mounted or ground-mounted equipment. So that's a general condition. So the submitted plans indicate rooftop mechanical equipment. If the applicant chooses to install ground-mounted equipment, then they would have to demonstrate compliance in that instance. What typically is required is effective screening utilizing landscaping or some other site obscuring barrier, with the caveat that any of the utilities may have certain spacing requirements. So for example, for electrical, it's typically a 3-foot setback unobstructed, but that would mean that they would just have to observe that setback and still screen. So they can go down the route of doing rooftop or ground mounted, but in either instance, we will assure before issuing any sort of certificate of occupancy that they've demonstrated compliance.
Okay, because that changes the whole look of the building, right? If they decide to do on the roof,
Yeah,
but
I
you're
think
saying
it's
you're
gonna
not
be-
going to do on the roof, it'll be ground,
It'll be ground, yeah.
be ground.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the public that would like to speak on this item?
There are no further comments.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing and enter into deliberations. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this project?
No, just wanted to say thank you for the information and for getting back to us and realizing that those standing conditions are now general conditions. Thank you for the clarification on that. So thank you.
Yeah, I also want to say thank you for coming back. I know sending projects back slows everything down, but I'm hoping that this will make it smoother, from this point forward. And I also do want to commend that there will be 2 electrical. I don't know if those are the first 2 in the city, but we don't have too many, I don't think. So that's be a nice different addition, because I know that's coming in the future. All right, so if there are no other comments, can I entertain a motion?
I will make a motion to
approve conditional use permit, planning review permit use for entitlement applications pursuant to provisions of Highway 111 Corridor Specific Plan adopted by City Council on September 11, 2022 for development of an 8-pump gas station inclusive of 2 electrical vehicle chargers and covered fuel island canopy on assessor's parcel number 611-373-041 on the corner of Indian Boulevard, Rockwell and Flower Street.
And we are recommending approval to City Council.
That is correct. If Commissioner Ciano would just, if he wouldn't mind referencing the resolution number, 22055, just for the record.
Yes, referencing resolution number 22-05-500, requesting approval to City Council to issue conditional use permit.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, can we just clarify that the resolution number is 2055? I believe the number that you referenced was the DR number. So
Okay.
I just, again, just for clarity of future, future understanding.
I was going off of
It's no problem.
our agenda is different
Absolutely.
than that. Okay. Make a recommendation to approve resolution number 2055.
And for the benefit of the commission, one of the things that we're doing, and you'll see it in future, is we're going to shorten our recommendations so that you don't have to, train to say the recommendation. And this is entirely acceptable because the resolution contains the full title. So in the future, you will see, as indicated on the screen, very short statements you can make into the record, and you don't need to say 25 lines.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Okay, so we have a motion, and do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, can we please get roll call?
Commissioner Isiano,
Yes.
Commissioner Fajardo,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Lopez,
Yes.
Chairperson Franz,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, we'll continue with public hearing item 6.3, request for approval of conditional use permit and planning review permit and land use entitlement applications. Corridor specific plan adopted by the city for Starbucks drive-through restaurant.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Kevin Snyder, Director of Community Development. This evening, the Commission is being asked to, again, review an item as a recommending body with your recommendation going to the City Council as the final decision maker, and I will explain that in further detail in just a minute. But as the Chair indicated, this is for the Starbucks drive-through restaurant project. And this particular project is, again, a conditional use permit and planning review application under the provisions of the adopted Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan, which was adopted on September 21, 2022. The applicant is seeking your approval for a approximately 1,300 square foot drive-through only restaurant with pickup window, so there will be no interior seating. And this would be a project that is located at the northeast corner of Oasis Street and Highway 111. To orient you, the Larson Justice Center is diagonally across the street, as is the John Benoit John Benoit Detention Center is also across the street. So this is along kind of at the edge of our historic downtown area. And the piece of property in question, just to kind of remind you, this is an older picture because in September of this year, that building that was shown on the picture was demolished by the applicant. And I wanted to show you this because that building stood for many years. The last time it was used was in about 2011 for a used car lot. After that, it sat for many years, had a brief return as a pop-up event site for the last Coachella Festival, but has mostly sat vacant, and the applicant has been working with the city over the years trying to determine the best and appropriate use for it. Actually, it has seen several proposals on that site, including potential mixed-use proposals. It's a very small site, very limited, trying to maximize getting mixed use on that site, and so we went kind of a different route with the applicant, and they'll explain their reasonings on why this makes sense to them as the property owner. But we looked at perhaps more of a single use for this site, knowing that it was size restricted. So the site plan that you're shown here in the lower left-hand corner is the primary site of the development. This is again a 1,300 square foot, one-story building that is located immediately adjacent to the Highway 11 public right-of-way. The applicant has situated the building so that it is immediately on the public right-of-way. Drive-through activities are behind the building and to the rear of the building, therefore making the building the primary visual element of the development. There is, in the upper right-hand corner, there is an area, because that primary site is limited, they weren't able to accommodate both parking for employees as well as patrons. And so they do own both parcels, and they are proposing to develop that upper right-hand corner with parking facilities for employees so that there is a place for them to park. And there may be occasional overflow parking from patrons or perhaps other users in the area, although this will be primarily utilized by Starbucks employees. So the site is limited, but the applicant has worked on a landscape plan that is desert appropriate and meets the Highway 11 corridor expectations for desert appropriate and water efficient landscaping. The applicant has also worked to, on the upper right-hand corner, that parking lot that I just discussed. They're using a combination of landscaping and low walls to minimize the impacts. There is an adjacent residence to the immediate northeast of that site. That property is zoned for commercial use, but it is currently being used. Working to be sensitive to that, to minimize impacts. They are also working to make sure that there's minimal light impact. When I issued the staff report for this project, there were several outstanding conditions of approval, 14 total, that needed to be addressed before the project went to City Council if the Commission chose to forward it on. One of those items was a more thorough photometric lighting plan. The applicant has come back and has addressed that. In order to assure that there's minimal impact, the revised resolution that was submitted to you and the hard copies are provided for you at your dais does contain a requirement that all lighting fixtures be shielded on all sides, that the maximum wattage be 200 watts, and that a final photometric lighting plan be submitted before a certificate of occupancy could be issued. Again, because of the site constraints, even though this is a commercial area, we're trying to be sensitive to the residential uses nearby. So making sure that that isn't lit up like a football field is through the application of these conditions, and the applicant has indicated that they're in full agreement with that. So the elevation drawings are shown here, and I'll get to some renderings, but these are showing the different elevations. The elevation that faces Highway 111, so typically the Highway 11 corridor plan would want to see the majority of that in glass. However, because that is back of store operations, and also because there is limited to no customer interaction outside the pickup window, staff finds that the use of different architectural treatments, both horizontal and vertical, and different materials meets the overall facade fenestration requirements, which typically you would want to see a lot more glass, but the use of other materials and the juxtaposition of those materials gets the same intent, which is to minimize the potential for a monolithic kind of flat wall effect on Highway 11. So you can see in these elevations that there's architectural interest, there's architectural variety, and that does, in staff's opinion, meet the overall facade variety requirement that the Highway 11 corridor specific plan seeks to obtain. As I noted, there will be a pickup window that's on the western elevation. Folks that are in the public right-of-way of Highway 11 can immediately access the site to go to that window, as can patrons who want to park instead of going through the drive-through. So if they have a mobile order, for example, they can park, they can walk across a defined pedestrian crossing through the drive-through lane, and we'll talk about that more in a minute, and they can access that. So there's two avenues of access. On that pedestrian crossing, to go back to the site plan, so one of the items that the applicant was asked to work on was to better define that crossing through the drive-through lane. And so what the applicant will be doing is they will be establishing pavers and they will be installing signage on either end to bring awareness to that this is a pedestrian crossing area. So that meets the intent of the Highway 11 corridor specific plan. And so that was one of the outstanding issues that they addressed when the original staff report came out. And in the resubmittal, they've addressed that, and staff believes adequately. So here are two renderings. The one on the left is looking from Highway 111 into the site. And as you can see, the variety of the different use of materials, the architectural variety, including use of glass, staff believes that meets the overall facade variety elements of the Highway 11 corridor specific plan. And then the rendering on the right shows you that experience. The one thing I would say is this rendering still shows a striped crosswalk. However, that will be pavers to differentiate the space along with signage. 100% complete, but the conditions that are in the revised resolution do address the requirement for a compliant crossing, and the applicant's resubmitted material indicate that. The project material board is shown here, and as you can see, there's a variety of different materials, different colors, and then it's kind of a unique architectural element they will be placing. If you go back, you'll see that on the lower left-hand corner, you will see that they will be utilizing this unique architectural feature as a way to break up the massing of the wall section that is part of the drive-through lane. So they will be utilizing in the upper right-hand corner this unique spiral design feature to add variety to the wall elevation. So staff conducted its analysis of the project, again, with both the General Plan 2040 and the Highway 11 corridor specific plan, and did find that it was compliant. It is covered under the EIR that was done, Environmental Impact Report that was done for the general plan that was adopted in September 2019. It also qualifies for a Class 32 infill designation under the CEQA guidelines, which is 15 lines. As I mentioned, the applicant did, in response to the originally issued staff report on December 7th, did submit updated material, and again, staff does believe that they've addressed all 14 outstanding conditions of approval. As I previously noted, you have both, it was emailed to you and also in front of you, a revised resolution. If you do decide to move forward this evening, staff would ask that you take any action pertaining to the revised resolution, not the one contained in your packet that was distributed last Thursday. Staff does believe it's compliant either as is or can be made compliant with the application of conditions of approval that are specified in that revised resolution, and that as a reminder, conditions of approval, if ultimately accepted by the City Council, are binding and must be adhered to. So again, your key considerations. They have the burden of proof. As always, we review that, and they have to demonstrate that they're compliant, and we review it to make sure that they are compliant. Number two, again, this is a limited land use, similar to the last project you reviewed, where you are the reviewing body, you make a recommendation to the City Council, but they're the final decision-making body. The project does not fully comply, but it can comply with the application of conditions of approval. Those are specified in the revised resolution, and again, similar to the last project, we took some of those 14 conditions of approval and made them standing general conditions of approval to ensure that there was ongoing compliance to certain sections of the Highway 11 corridor specific plan that we wanted to make sure we could enforce if there was a need to further down the road. And then again, the applicant did resubmit on Friday, December 8th, in response to the issued staff report with those 14 conditions of approval, and staff, after thoroughly reviewing the resubmittal, believes that they do comply and that those 14 conditions of approval are no longer necessary, are not included in the revised resolution that's in front of you. So you have your options. Again, you can recommend conditional approval to the City Council, and that is the staff recommendation. You can recommend denial to the City Council, or you can continue on motion action to a date and time certain and ask for additional information from the applicant or staff. With that, staff is recommending that you approve revised resolution number 2077, additional approval of case file 230657 to the City Council. Happy to answer any questions the Commission might have. The applicant is here in person. I do believe we also have a representative from Starbucks that is attending virtually, so they can answer any questions that the commission might have, but happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of staff at this time? No? Okay, I'll have questions, but I'm gonna wait till after the applicant, presents. So we'll open the public hearing and welcome the applicant to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Jim Bickle from Bickle Group Architects. I'm representing Brian Way and Matthew Arfa, the developers of the project. We've been working as a team for many years, and on this specific project for many years. As you heard with another earlier project, this has been for us a fairly long, arduous process, but we're very pleased with hopefully where we've gotten so far. Worked with Mr. Schneider extensively for a long time on this, and as he mentioned, the project started out as a much more ambitious project, trying to be mixed use, multi-level, and despite many tries at that, at the end of the day, because of some dedications on Highway 111, some utility easements across the corner, some WQMP requirements, parking requirements, et cetera, it just wasn't working out. And it was actually at staff's recommendation in one of the meetings we had here at the city. They said, hey, there's a Starbucks in another city. Maybe, you know, you could use a similar configuration, as we realized there's a lot of sensitivity to drive-throughs. And that's how this particular, the genesis of this particular layout, and we were happy to try it, and we've worked through. Obviously, there's some challenges because of the size of the site and the fact that this building is going to be no dining, inside dining. It's all walk-up and drive-through. So, for instance, the fenestration and so on and so forth. You saw the physical material boards. They're all very high-quality materials. Specifically, I'll just point out that the gray wood, and I'm saying in air quotes, is not really wood. We realize it's the desert. We've done a lot of work as a firm out here in the Coachella Valley and realize we're not going to put wood. So that's a material that will be long-lasting. The decorative sort of mid-century modern design that's going to go on the drive-through side, those are imprinted on aluminum panels. So again, very heat sensitive to touch and weathering, et cetera, et cetera. We did go through the 13 or 14 potential conditions. We've done our best to address all of those. Initially, I was thinking I was going to walk you through each one of those, but maybe in the spirit of time, I'll just, if you have any specific questions about how or why we addressed any of those, I'm happy to go through those. I think that's it.
Any questions of the applicant? No? I have one. You know, when you bring up the old picture, right, of the old building that I have seen for most of my adult life as I drive by, there is a little pony wall. I don't know if that wall's been removed already. That kind of breaks up that lot and the little alleyway. I'm assuming that's gone. See that little wall right there? Or does that wall belong to Del Taco?
The wall is actually still there.
Still there. Is that going to be removed? Because the landscaping on the design looks lush and beautiful, like it's an open lot.
I'm not sure which wall we're talking about,
So,
to be honest with you.
To assist, there's a pony wall that runs along the eastern property line. It's at the edge of the public alleyway. And so that wall there, at this point, unless I'm wrong, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, I think the intent is that wall will stay. It is actually acts as a barrier, bluntly, for people to not cross from the public right-of-way into private property. So if the applicant wanted to remove that or had a need to, or the wall was structurally failing for some reason, then we would want to work with the applicant to try to come up with another way to minimize vehicle passage into the property, which I think is both a liability and safety concern. So at the moment, unless Mr. Bickle or Mr. Arf or Mr. Way.
You're correct,
Yes.
exactly, yes.
So my question is there going to be a pedestrian walkway? So say somebody's at Del Taco wanting to grab a taco, and they're other person in the car says, you know what, I'm gonna run over and get a Starbucks, is there gonna be accessibility for people to walk across? Or are they gonna have to go out onto the main 111 and walk down the walkway?
There is a sidewalk that runs along the alley, along the east side of the alley, that actually connects to the trash enclosure, which is at the northeast side. So, you know, both people that might be in that northeast parking lot, or if they, you know, family came and someone said, well, I want Del Taco or Taco Bell, or Del Taco, excuse me, and I want to go get a Starbucks, you can get across the alley and get directly on a sidewalk. You don't have to walk on the alley to get to the Starbucks building.
Okay.
The other thing I would note, Chair, is that from the city standpoint, we would discourage folks from using the public alley as a crossing area because of safety concerns. It would, and that was actually something we talked about early on, is how to facilitate that crossing. The parking area in the upper right-hand corner, that's a limited parking area for employees only. So ultimately, consulting with the city engineer, it was determined that we would not establish a true connection in terms of a striped or otherwise, to not create a false sense of security, that this was a safe place. So ideally, if someone is at Del Taco and they want to run and get a coffee at Starbucks, they would go onto the public right-of-way that is immediately adjacent to the Del Taco, walk approximately 30 steps, and go to the pickup window at the Starbucks. So ideally, and if you want more detail on that, I know our city engineer is present this evening. He can talk to you about that, but we did discourage any active use of that alleyway. It is 20 feet wide, and it is an older alley section with one-way traffic. Unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to control the speeds on that, so it is better to put them into the space that has already been built for pedestrian activity.
Okay. So one more thing on the wall. I'm assuming there will be landscaping or something, otherwise that wall's just gonna look really odd compared to the new modern building that is there.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, with the, you can see on the landscape plants up there, we're planning on putting a fairly lush landscape, you know, desert landscape palette in, and I don't think you'll even notice that wall.
Okay, hopefully that won't remind people of what used to be there instead of what is going to be there. So, another question?
Yeah, yes, I have a question. Since it's along the 111 corridor, we have a Starbucks down the street, not too far from it. And my concern is some of the stacking that might take place while they're driving through. Is this like a traffic for city staff to address that? Because that's just a question of like, how are we going to mitigate that?
It's a great question, and I'll give an initial response. If it's inadequate, then our city engineer can jump in. But we did take a lot of energy around the stacking issue with Mr. Bickle and the owners, because we wanted to minimize stacking of traffic. So first and foremost, there is no driveway from the property onto Highway 111. Access into the property is off of Oasis Street, and it is intended to be a right-in, right-out access. As one of the conditions of approval, the applicant will have to construct a raised curb median in Oasis Street that will prohibit left turn movements going back to Highway 111. So we're trying to minimize the stacking concern. I know very well what you're talking about. I've experienced that issue because of the sharp turn into that existing Starbucks. So we are forcing traffic to come in right, and we're forcing traffic to leave right, which should minimize the potential for the stacking onto the public right-of-way that you've experienced at the other Starbucks. Again, if that's not fully answering your question, Vice Chairperson, I'm happy to invite City Engineer Ray up.
Yeah, I still have a question. So if they're coming in from 111 and they make a right, would that stack up, you know, making a right into, from Oasis, you know, on Oasis Street, making a right?
Right.
How are you going to mitigate if there is, because it's Starbucks, so we're going to have, like we have an in and out, and how it kind of wraps around there. But that's just a question there, and, you know, being so close to the courthouse in our downtown area, like how are we going to?
So it's a good question. I think there will be a preponderance of folks that will access the business on pedestrian actions because of the proximity of the courthouse activity. There will be vehicular traffic that will access it. I believe there's adequate on-site stacking for 11 or 12 vehicles.
I believe it's 12, plus there's kind of an unofficial area that if it overflowed past that, it wouldn't get into the public way.
Correct. So I won't say conclusively, again, I would invite either our city engineer or our consulting traffic engineer up, but I believe that based on appropriate transportation engineering standards, we have analyzed and the professionals have determined that they are comfortable with the vehicle stacking and the impacts to the public right-of-way, but perhaps I can invite our consulting traffic engineer, Mark Greenwood, up to further expand on that.
Good evening. As Kevin introduced me, I'm Mark Greenwood. I'm the city's consultant transportation engineer. This site went through multiple, I would say many redesigns trying to maximize the drive-through storage. And this was the best that we could come up with that was both efficient for the operation and just stored as many cars as possible in the drive-through. The city has a somewhat unofficial standard of trying to stack at least 12 cars in a drive-through. Some of that is from the Dutch Brothers experience at their opening when they had probably 40 cars they were trying to stack, or even more. But on a normal day-to-day operation, 12 to 15 in some cases has been found to be a pretty good standard, and that's based on studies throughout Southern California, mostly in the Orange County area. So we're relatively comfortable with this design, stacking 12 vehicles. And then we tried to mitigate that with the no left turns in or out of the site. And so in the worst case, if traffic does stack out into the street, there might be, say, 2 or 3 cars that could stack in the right-hand lane on Oasis before we got into a situation on 111. So we don't think that'll be a problem, that this on a normal or even a busy day, it should be fine.
One thing, Vice Chairperson, I would also say is I think it's important to distinguish there might be an initial maybe opening day or opening days response where we see more vehicles because it's a new business, it is a well-known business versus normal operations, which I think Mr. Greenwood is referring to. So in that instance, if we anticipate any sort of momentary traffic impacts, we will work with both Starbucks and the property owners to have a traffic management plan. We did that with the Dutch Brothers to minimize the impacts. We talked about that recently with another project that you reviewed. And so we are aware, and that usually what we do at that point is our consulting traffic engineer, our city engineer, and the Indio Police Department work with the applicant and the owners to make sure that there is minimal impact to traffic operations from these momentary increase in volumes of drive-through activity.
I have a follow-up question, sir. Thank you for the insight. Now, in looking at the map here, the pedestrian walkway that's at the drive-through is closest to Oasis Street. Is that correct? Right off of Oasis and 111 there. So if I'm making a right turn in, I'm immediately going to see the pedestrian walkway first. Is that correct?
As you come in off Oasis, you can go far north, and that.
So I'm making a right turn in, and I'm going to go to the drive-through, right? Is the pedestrian walkway from the parking lot within that particular development the first sort of thing a person would see as they drive in? It looks that way from the rendering.
But keep in mind, the entry side of the drive-through is at the far north.
It's at the far north.
So you're looping around.
So you're exiting through the pedestrian
Yes.
pathway.
So the idea is you're
Understood.
at a complete stop. You've purchased your coffee. You're at
Correct.
a complete stop. And as Mr. Snyder said, we're going to put decorative pavers and signage that says caution crossing. So we won't have traffic that's already moving the covered. Fairly, easily seen will be that crossing, that diagonal crossing.
Got it.
To minimize the conflict of pedestrians and vehicles.
And then another question is, where is that sidewalk relative to the alleyway? Because my kids frequent Del Taco, and I don't remember seeing a sidewalk there at all.
I don't believe there's a sidewalk there today.
There is not a sidewalk in the alleyway. There is an on-site sidewalk connection that would allow staff with Starbucks to access the trash enclosure. They could also access the property as they walk across the alley from that parking area in the extreme right-hand corner. But there is no specified or built sidewalk or pedestrian walkway in the alley.
In the alley itself. Yeah, I
Correct.
misunderstood that because I thought that it was stated that there was a sidewalk, hence the question earlier from Chairperson France about the safety of walking potentially through that alleyway. So the idea would be to obviously, obviously allow for pedestrians to walk from the parking lot area, which is your building to the north, onto the sidewalk or just come through the Del Taco as you outlined, correct? So I guess my next follow-up question is, how do we know for certain that pedestrians won't walk through the alleyway to access Starbucks? We don't, right?
Well, I'll answer that. We can, from staff side, we can design anything and everything to direct pedestrians to a certain area, and ultimately they will decide what they want to do. The proverbial, there's a straight line between A and B. They'll choose their straight line.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that.
Just to let you know, we also have a Starbucks architect here, if there's any questions about maybe the operations or something like that.
Yeah, I have a question for Starbucks.
Hey, how are you? My name is Michael Faragala. I'm the architect of record for Starbucks on this one.
Thank you. So, we're always, concerned, of course, with the use of a space, but also employment. So how many, a location like this would have how many employees,
At a
full-time,
given time,
part-time?
yeah. So this location will employ about 24 employees in total, as broken up into 3 shifts. And so you will have about 6 employees at a given shift. The way that we are designating parking for this location is that the employees will park actually in the remote parking location, and we will have signs there for employees only, allowing the limited parking that we have on site to be for mobile order pickup. And the reason why we're doing that is we know that we have a 12-car stack right now. Now, these are generous parking stalls. We're talking about 20-foot parking stalls. So in general, you're probably going to be at 14 cars before it spills out onto Oasis. And so the idea is, and you will also notice that the median between the drive-through and the parking was shifted back a little bit, so that if a customer is coming in and seeing that it's pretty full, they can go into the MOP parking and pick up their drink that way. So you should be able to service about 18 customers at a given time before it spills out. And so, to your question, 6 employees will be parking at the off-site parking.
So you mentioned 3 shifts. So this is going to be open 24 hours?
No, but
Almost.
It's typically there is a little bit of an overlap. So it's at a coffee shop. They open at 5 a.m. But in order for them to do that, they need to come in an hour early.
Right.
And usually we ask for hours of operation to be between 5 a.m. to 12 a.m. That doesn't mean that they close at 12. Based on the demographic, based on the safety of the employees, they may be closing at 10 or 9. It all depends. But we always ask for those hours of operation. Again, they have cleanup, they have stocking, and et cetera. So.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank
Great,
you.
thank you.
Chair,
Any other
could I make a notation for the record?
Sure.
The city does not currently have specified hours of operation for businesses. That is a business choice. So the hours of operation indicated by the representative for Starbucks, that is a business choice. There's nothing in the regulatory standards that specify a business can only operate during certain hours. I just want to make that clear for the record.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item?
Yes, Chairperson, there is a comment from Mr. Jeff David. Mr. Jeff, you will have 3 minutes to make a comment. You can go ahead and speak.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. My name is Jeff David. I am representing the adjacent commercial property to the north of this proposed development. Happy to see development in the area. We've definitely had our share of issues with the property over the years. So I'm happy to see this project. I guess my concerns that I wanted to comment on have been touched on already. The traffic situation, I want to make sure that there was some analysis done for this 12-car stack up. Is that Starbucks statistics and research that they've done? Will that be sufficient for a store in this area? Also, a concern is the left turn from Highway 111 to Oasis Street. That's a light right now, that a green arrow. So is there the potential for traffic to back up there? Because if people are trying to get to our office, which is the next building north of this proposed site, if they're heading eastbound on 111, turning north onto Oasis Street, are they going to be backed up behind cars waiting to get to Starbucks? I also wanted to make sure that the new proposed median going in on Oasis Street would not be blocking access in and out of our property. And then lastly, just wanted to see if Starbucks has addressed any security, what that situation will be. I know that Starbucks do tend to draw all members of the community. Sometimes they become a central point for unhoused individuals. So I just want to make sure there is something in the plan that would make for good neighbors. Again, thank you for listening to my comments, and hopefully we can move forward.
Thank you. Are there any other?
There are no more comments.
No more comments. Kevin, can we address a couple of the ones that he mentioned?
Yes, so I'll let the Starbucks representatives or the property owner speak about security protocols and practices. Regarding the question about impacting the driveway of the adjacent business to the north, the raised curb median to prohibit left turning movements will not extend past the property line, the northern property line, so that property will not be impacted by that. This is intended to manage the left turning movements for the Starbucks property only. Regarding the question about will there be vehicle stacking, as we've discussed, and our consulting transportation engineer has identified, we believe that they've provided for adequate on-site stacking. All drivers do need to obey traffic rules, so they should not be turning inappropriately. And if there are vehicles for some reason that are waiting to turn in, which may happen on occasion, staff's not disputing that, they should follow all traffic rules. So from staff's perspective, and again, we can invite the consulting transportation engineer back up if you want further detail. We have analyzed this. It meets transportation engineering standards. As Mr. Greenwood noted, this went through extensive review and discussion, was analyzed both by the applicant's traffic engineer as well as by city traffic engineering, and we're satisfied that it meets all standards for vehicle movement and operation. So, but if you want further detail, I'm happy to have Mr. Greenwood come back up. If you're satisfied, then we could invite the applicant for Starbucks back up to speak to security protocols.
Any questions of staff before we ask the applicant back up? No? You have one? Okay. If the applicant wouldn't mind coming up and addressing, I think the security question is something everyone's concerned
Absolutely.
about.
As far as security goes, the concerns that we typically see from a security standpoint is usually the trash enclosure and enough illumination on site. Before this project was submitted, we did run a photometrics analysis to make sure it's well illuminated to deter any kind of unwanted use. Also, the trash enclosure will be fully enclosed and only accessed by the partners that will be operating the store, and to kind of can deter any kind of unwanted. The other point that I want to make is that you'll notice that the pickup window for the walk-up is actually right on the hard corner. Again, to just provide additional safety for the customers and the operator that's running the store. Yeah, hopefully that answered.
Will there be any seating at all?
No seating at this location.
So the idea is grab and go?
Exactly, absolutely.
Okay.
So again, not to encourage anybody to camp. No outdoor seating at this location.
And if I may, sir, are there any other Starbucks similar to this kind of setup?
Yeah,
that you
multiple.
Can tell us about, that we can?
Multiple. So when we notice that this is going to be more of a commuter location that will service the commuter that's trying to get to work, we want to, place a more of a drive-through only or a drive-through with a pickup. My understanding is there are some businesses in the neighborhood that will probably just kind of walk to it, pick up their drink, and get back to their desk or their office. And so we are, servicing that customer. But I think based on the demographic and based on the analysis, it's going to be 80% out the window. You'll also notice that we placed our order point at car number 8 from the window. It's the 8th car back, and that will minimize the amount of time it takes to produce that drink. It'll actually be less than 30 seconds. So in the event that it does back up a little bit, it will move pretty quickly to kind of make up for that.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And there's no one else from the public at this point?
No further comments.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and enter into deliberations. Do we have any comments among the commissioners or questions of staff?
Just want to say thank you for doing your due diligence and working with the city. And thank you, Planning Department, for working in trying to mitigate some of those initial concerns, namely the traffic and obviously pedestrian safety. So just want to say thank you.
I also want to say thank you for addressing those 13 or 14 items that we would have probably had to talk about, and now we do not have to talk about, so thank you very much. I also do want to thank you. I think it will be a very nice addition to that corner. I think it'll be something that whether it's the people that work at the courthouses or people serving their jury duty, they'll be very happy to have Starbucks there. I know that staff will be very careful on opening day to worry about traffic, that kind of thing, but I am looking forward to this and welcome having a Starbucks in our downtown area. So are there any questions, or does staff have comments?
Chair, just as a reminder, if the commission does make a motion, we ask that it be referenced as revised resolution number 2077. Thank you.
Yep, got that one. Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll go ahead and motion that we approve revised resolution number 2077, recommending conditional approval of case file number 230657 to the City Council.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Isiano,
Yes.
Commissioner Fajardo,
Yes?
Vice Chairperson Lopez,
Yes.
Chairperson Franz,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and ask for a 5-minute recess. Thank you. What is your project company?
Yes, we are good. We're ready when the commission is.
We'll go ahead and reopen the meeting at, I don't know what time is it, 7:20 p.m. And let the record show everybody's back. And we'll go ahead and move on to item 6.4, request for approval of conditional use permit and planning for a Waterfly Express car wash.
Thank you, Chairperson, and for the evening, good evening, Commissioners, and for the record, Kevin Snyder, Director of Community Development. This item before you is also an item that is being considered under the auspices of the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan. This is, as I've referred to in other projects, a limited land use. It is a car wash facility under the auspices of the plan. You, as a commissioner, are a recommending body again, making a recommendation to the City Council, who is the final decision maker. So you will hold a public hearing and make a recommendation potentially this evening if you so wish. And then at a future date, the City Council will hold their own separate public hearing and they will make the final decision. So without further ado, we'll talk a little bit about the project. So this project is a request to build a car wash facility on Highway 111. The site is, it is east of Madison and west of Clinton. It's across the street from the Mathis Brothers to kind of landmark you. And if you're familiar with the irrigation canal that kind of runs down north-south and actually goes under Highway 11 and then reappears, it is immediately east of that. So it's approximately 1 acre site, and it is a piece of property that has been captured, if you will, by the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan, as well as other parcels along there. So again, it's being looked at under the auspices of that plan. So the project proposes an approximately 5,300 square foot car wash tunnel building supported by on-site parking, which are really intended for vacuum spaces to clean and vacuum out cars, and then 3 vehicle stacking lanes to go into that car wash tunnel. Again, the general plan designation for this, per the General Plan 2040 adopted in September 2018, is mixed-use neighborhood, and the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan designates this property as mixed-use corridor. Being mixed-use corridor, the standards are a little bit higher, and then you add on top of that the limited land use, and so we're going to go into that in a little bit further detail. But again, to orient you, here's the property. It's signified by the blue dot. Again, Highway 11 is to the immediate north, and it is between Madison and Clinton. And again, there's that irrigation canal that I referenced that is immediately to the west of the property, if you're familiar with the area. And also a little bit to the west of that irrigation canal, another landmark is the produce stand. So if you're wondering where this is at, hopefully those landmarks help you out. And it's kitty corner again to Mathis Brothers. So here's an image of the site. It is where you see those row of palm trees, and you see the overhead power lines and the fabric fencing that's in that area. Again, this is along Highway 11 corridor. This area is on the south side of Highway 11 is underdeveloped currently. It has a smattering of some businesses, but at least in this particular section between Clinton and Madison, it is an underdeveloped area. To the east of this, there are some service businesses, Carpet Empire, again, to give you landmarks, and then some other service businesses past that. So here is the project site plan. Again, this represents what I was describing earlier. This is a project with, again, a car wash tunnel, on-site parking with vacuum services, vehicle stacking lane, and a driveway, in and out driveway onto Highway 111. Access to the property is vehicular in nature. This is really a fully auto-oriented land use. The Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan seeks to balance between auto orientation and pedestrian orientation, both by building placement, by pedestrian connections, and by overall building design. And as we go through this, you're going to see why staff believes that unfortunately this project does not meet the Highway 11 Corridor as proposed. So here is the project landscape plan. The project landscape plan does show significant utilization of landscaping. Again, they have followed the direction of the plan by being desert friendly, and that it's a little bit hard to read on your screen probably, but in the upper right hand corner they've actually done water efficient analysis to demonstrate how they're water efficient. So the project landscape plan generally does show compliance with the intent of the Highway 11 corridor specific plan, but unfortunately other parts of the project do not. Here are the project building elevations. Again, this is primarily the on-site building. There's one. It is intended to be a car wash tunnel. The kind of the architectural theme, and you'll see that in the renderings, is kind of a mid-century modern theme. So there's a little bit more architectural flair to the building than you might see in some other car wash. And I'll show you that. Here's a rendering, kind of an aerial view, if you will, of the site, how it would look and feel from the air if you were looking down on it as built. Again, the building, the roof structure of the building is visible. You can see that the access off of Highway 111. You can see the vehicle stacking lanes that go into a single lane for the car wash tunnel, and you can also see the on-site vacuum spaces and vacuum parking spaces. Here are the renderings. Again, the building does have architectural massing. It does incorporate on certain elevations, facade fenestration and interesting architectural features. On the eastern elevation of the building, which appear to be back of operations elevation, the wall elevation is a little bit less fenestrated and is a little bit flatter. So that was an issue in the staff report where we identified that. So staff did a thorough review of the project with the Highway 11 corridor specific plan. And as a reminder, the Highway 11 corridor specific plan and the general plan are looking at Highway 11 as a mixed-use corridor. Highway 11 corridor specific plan, because it was intended to be a plan that looked both short-term and long-term and understood that the transformation of the Highway 11 corridor specific plan would not take place overnight, tried to balance private property rights with the overall vision of the city. And so therefore, that's where the term limited land uses came into play. And again, this is a limited land use. And so when we looked at it and made the determination as proposed, the project did not demonstrate compliance to the specific plan. And there was no way to get there as currently proposed with conditions of approval. So in this particular instance, staff could not find through the application of conditions of approval a way to make the project compliant with the plan. Because the project couldn't be found to be compliant with the plan, staff could not make a finding of consistency with the EIR that was done for the general plan. So one of the benefits of the Highway 11 corridor specific plan is that it is consistent with the general plan 2040 and also the environmental impact report that was done for the general plan 2040. So any project that comes in under the Highway 11 corridor plan that is found consistent with that specific plan is automatically consistent with the program final environmental impact report, and no further CEQA review is needed. Unfortunately, because we couldn't make a finding of overall compliance to the specific plan, we cannot make a finding of consistency with the environmental impact report that was done for the general plan. So it also does not address CEQA compliance adequately. We also could not make a finding that it was compliant with the Class 32 infill. So on both those counts, we could not make findings of CEQA compliance. So in that regard, we then turn to what are your key considerations. So again, the applicant has the burden of proof. It is a limited land use, as I've described. And as we went through through the analysis, we found major areas of noncompliance. One, it's fully auto-oriented. The design does not in any way try to address the balance between being auto-oriented and pedestrian-oriented. Obviously, the nature of the business is auto-oriented. We understand that. But there was the Highway 11 corridor specific plan, in recognizing that there will be auto-oriented businesses, does require, through Section 314, the limited land use section, an effort to make the project as much as possible have pedestrian-oriented features. And this project does not, as currently proposed, in staff's opinion. It does not comply with the building placement requirements. So one of the things that the Highway 11 corridor specific plans requires of applicants is when you're placing, this also applies to limited land uses, you need to place it as close as possible to the Highway 11 corridor. In this instance, the project is set back significantly from the Highway 11 corridor. There is a build-out area in the plan that's specified from 0 to 15 feet. So normally what you would see is that a building like this should be within 15 feet of Highway 11 corridor, and it's not. It's substantially set back almost 60 feet. So there is a lack of bringing the building forward. Obviously, the applicant will share with you that that's a challenge, I'm sure, with the operations that they proposed for the site. But in terms of compliance with the plan, we could not make a finding of compliance. No pedestrian connections, I've already mentioned that. Again, that was a compliance issue. There are several elements of the plan that highlight and focus on pedestrian connections. The only access into the building, if you will, for customers is at the southeastern elevation, which is at the bottom portion of the site. So there is, well, you can access that from the on-site vehicle parking area, the vacuum service area. A pedestrian could not access that. Again, the plan promotes and requires pedestrian accessibility. And then we also noted that there's no facade fenestration on the eastern building elevation. We recognize that there are some challenges with that, but unfortunately there was no effort to use any sort of, in staff's opinion, architectural variety or other ways to get around that significant fenestration or glass requirement. The upper portion of the building does have some glass elements, but the overall architectural fenestration on that eastern elevation, the standard was not met, again, in staff's opinion. Lack of accessible shop fronts. So in the Highway 11 corridor specific plan, there are different types of entrances. The most approximate to this is a shop front entrance, which means the area where an individual coming into the property would be able to access it expediently and efficiently. Because the shop front in this instance is on that southeastern elevation, and there's no pedestrian connectability, it is not easy for pedestrians to access this property. Again, we recognize that it's an auto-oriented use, but that alone does not allow the lack of compliance, if you will. And then we also noted that it exceeds the amount of allowed parking. Again, we understand the auto-oriented nature of the project, but nevertheless, there are standards for parking in the Highway 11 corridor specific plan that establish minimum and maximums, and this project exceeded the maximum. All of this is detailed in further in the staff report. I'm just giving you an overview summary, and can certainly go into much more detail. So as it stands now in staff's professional determination, the project does not substantially comply with the Highway 11 corridor specific plan. And as a result of that, we cannot make a finding or a recommendation to you of compliance. Again, it does not qualify for findings of consistency or the under CEQA, which is section 15183 of the CEQA guidelines. That's the relevant statute. And it also doesn't comply for that class 32 infill exemption, which is section 15332. So in both instances, we cannot find CEQA compliance. And then that then leads us to what your options are. So right now, you can recommend denial to the City Council. That's the staff recommendation. You can recommend conditional approval to the City Council. If you choose to do that, then there are some steps that need to be taken. One, we would need direction from the Commission to prepare a resolution containing conditions of approval. You would then need to continue the public hearing and schedule to a date and time certain to review and consider and take action on the revised resolution containing those conditions of approval. So if you decide to do that, there is a follow-up step, for lack of a better word. Or you can continue on motion action to a date and time certain and request the applicant and or staff to submit more information to you for your consideration. So at this time, staff is recommending that you approve resolution number 2078 that would recommend denial of this project to the City Council. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I believe the applicant is in attendance in person, and they can certainly respond to any questions you have, but happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions of staff at this time?
Yeah, Kevin, we saw this for design review maybe 6 months ago, 7 months ago?
The project consultation?
Yeah.
I believe so, roughly, okay. Yes. I'd have to check the schedule, but I believe so.
And at that time, were those some of those concerns that you mentioned, were those mentioned? I don't recall.
Yeah, so when we do project consultations, we don't provide any substantive findings to the Commission because it's not a real project, and it would be inappropriate because we're prejudicing the Commission in its consideration of the project. But We have been talking with the applicant since they, prior to their formal submittal and after their formal submittal, and we did make them aware of the requirements of the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan and the concerns I've addressed this evening. So these are not new in staff's opinion. They would have heard them from staff representatives. But again, in that project consultation, we would have not made these remarks because it would have been inappropriate and legally challengeable.
Yeah, and as far as the parking maximum being exceeded, is that taken into account, counting those vacuum spaces as parking spaces? Is that the reason for that?
So the way the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan works is it establishes parking minimums and parking maximums, and it doesn't distinguish based on the nature it's parking, right? So whether it's parking for vacuum purposes or it's parking for standard parking purposes to access a business, it doesn't take that into account. Again, what the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan is trying to do is to limit an overabundance of parking in the corridor to create that more pedestrian mixed-use orientation. So in this instance, between the parking that they have for employees and the parking they have for patrons, they exceeded that. Now, they could seek to reduce the parking. That's certainly something they could consider, and they may want to talk to you about that when they make their comments to you. But that is something that the plan says it establishes those thresholds between minimum and maximums, and that it does allow for a 15% deviation, which the commission could authorize, but that was not requested.
Okay, thank you.
And just very briefly from the city attorney's perspective, can you go back one slide, Kevin, if you don't mind? So should the commission choose to take option number 2, we would ask that the commission propose at least some of the conditional approval bases that you're finding that are, maybe in contravention or different from those that staff has taken, just in order to direct our work when we come back before you. And that's, again, I just wanted to clarify the asterisk there. That would be very helpful from a staff perspective. Thank you.
And if you, just to add to the city attorney's comments, if you choose to go that route, we'll be helping you through that, because we're not asking you to make explicit findings, but to give guidance as to reasons why you think that that's the appropriate course of action that can help us in preparing that. So you don't have to go into great detail, but enough detail to give us guidance as we prepare that. So, but both Jillian and myself would be available to assist the commission if that is the option you choose.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. That's exactly what I intended to say.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions of staff at this time? No? Okay, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and we invite the applicant.
Hello, my name's Joseph Bermudez. I'm with Siteology, and I'm representing Waterfly Express Car Wash this evening. I appreciate you all having me here. The first thing I wanted to state was I appreciate the comprehensive staff report that we received last week, and we were able to analyze all the different compliances where we do comply and areas where we don't comply. Our team has been basically looking at this, and we would really like to push for option 2, obviously getting a recommendation for conditional approval, because we think that we can make significant changes or subtle changes even to our plan to promote pedestrian connectivity, which would help us comply with the Highway 111 specific plan. Furthermore, continue to beautify this area that has been vacant forever, as far as I know. There's other challenges too with this site as far as building placement, not only operationally, but there is, the canal has pipes that run through the frontage where we physically cannot build on top of them. And there's also some cylinders coming up out of the ground that we have to respect at the same time. So that's why you can kind of see them there, and with the overhead power lines. So part of which, too, another justification is we can utilize our landscaping and shift our plan a little bit to promote more pedestrian connectivity, specifically down that property line that goes along the canal. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for pedestrian pathing to lead into whatever development is to come after us, behind us, as this property does kind of cut off into an undeveloped area. We understand there is some other development being planned there, but we don't know where that stands at today. So essentially, we think, we could serve this community pretty well as how we would mix in with current businesses, with other automotive uses right down Highway 111. You got Jiffy Lube, you have a tire shop, auto parts stores, other service base to our west. So, allowing pedestrians or your community here, they're going to need a place to wash their vehicle, especially with the influx of the residential that's planned around us. So we feel, especially with medium to high density residential being planned there, those folks will need a place to wash their vehicles. Obviously, people coming through and surrounding communities, we can also service them by providing them a safe place to wash their vehicles as well, as opposed to, them trying to wash them on their own in their driveways or in parking lots using chemicals that, are not regulated, as opposed to our facility where we have environmentally friendly chemicals being utilized. On top of that, we reclaim about 65% of our water. So, where someone's washing the vehicle with a mop and with a bucket and a sponge can use 40 to 120 gallons of water, we're using 8 to 16 gallons of water per vehicle. So I think there is an environmental friendliness to our operation. I think if you give us the opportunity to go through with recommendation for conditions of approval, we could adjust our site plan, specifically our landscaping as well, to promote pedestrian connectivity along that west property line by either shifting our building more towards the street and to the east. Maybe that calls for reducing some stacking, one of our queuing lanes, which would then open up that area tremendously. And then for the area in which, between the frontage, that obviously we need space for the cars to get out of the wash and safely turn back into the parking lot. There needs to be a specific radius there. Maybe we can integrate benches or kind of a plaza theme, is what I'm thinking, to help promote that, atmosphere and comply with the 111 plan. I'm open to any other questions, comments you all might have tonight. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the applicant? No? Anybody? No? No? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you, though.
All right, thank you so much.
Do we have anyone from the public to speak on this item?
No public comments.
No? Okay. Then at this time, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And do we have questions of staff or any deliberations, conversations we want to have?
I have a question. Were the residents behind the property notified about this meeting tonight?
So consistent with the city's standards, all properties within 500 feet on all sides were notified, were sent written mail notices. So if properties were within 500 feet, they received that. We also posted the site with our notice boards, so that was visible along Highway 11 corridor. And then finally, we did the legal notice in the newspaper record, was the Desert Sun. So again, if they were within 500 feet, they would have received written notice.
Any questions, comments? No? I think my only comment here is, we worked really hard on that Highway 111 plan. We really focused on the mixed use component of it. And, automotive uses, even though we have some there now, those are grandfathered, but they're definitely not part of what I think we were envisioning Highway 111 corridor to be. So, to me, one of the things that stick out is the inability to be a mixed use, because it is an auto-oriented business, and I understand that. So that's one of the things that's really sticking with me. I don't know about the rest of you.
I also had shared some similar concerns, noting we do have the pre-existing, automotive businesses, as you mentioned, sir. But more importantly, that mixed element, that connectivity piece, that's kind of in the spirit of what we want to see along the corridor. And so, that's also sharing the same opinion in that matter, just again noting that perhaps there may be another opportunity. I like the idea of a plaza, as you mentioned, but more importantly, again, just to kind of be consistent with our vision for the city and the corridor, at least that's my take on it, is I'd like to kind of see your vision probably repurposed for that land.
No more comments? Do I have a motion?
Get on the screen. I'll go ahead and make the motion.
Can we put up our options, please? Thank you.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we recommend denial and approve, resolution number 2078 recommending denial of case file number 230219 to the City Council.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Let's get a roll call vote.
Commissioner Isiano,
Yes.
Commissioner Fajardo,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Lopez,
Yes.
Chairperson Franz,
Yes.
motion carries.
And Chair, for the benefit of the applicant and anyone watching, this item is tentatively scheduled to go forward to the City Council on January 17th, 2024, pending confirmation from the City Manager's Office for agenda scheduling. So at that time, the applicant will have another opportunity to make his or her case to the City Council, which again will be the final decision-making authority, but staff will present the Planning Commission's recommendation as motioned this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any commissioners' comments at this time? The only one I want to say is really want to wish everyone a great holiday season, whether it's Christmas or whatever it is that you celebrate, and a Happy New Year. And I look forward to working with everyone, staff and commissioners, and of course our community as well in the next year. And have a little patience. I haven't been chair for a couple years, so it's going to take me a couple meetings to warm up. We'll go ahead and go staff items.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to note that the next Planning Commission meeting is January 10th, 2024. So we will not be meeting again this month because of the holiday schedule. We do have a very packed meeting on January 10th. We have approximately 5 items that evening. Because we did lose a meeting this month, we have applicants who have been patiently waiting. So we hope that all the commission members will be in attendance again January 10th, 2024. Note the year change, beginning at 6 p.m. We will be, to give you an example, and Principal Planner Reef has previously shared a preliminary schedule with you, but there will be a warehouse project on Indio and Burr Street, a request to remove a piece of property from an existing specific plan called Gateway Specific Plan, a design review for a project called West End Materials, a tentative parcel map, and some policy considerations on relating to sphere of influence. So a packed evening. We hope that you will all be in attendance. And then on behalf of the staff and myself, I want to thank the Commission for all of your hard work in 2023. You did a lot. You gave a lot of your valuable volunteer time to us and to the community, and really want to thank the Commission for all of your hard work. This is a team effort, and we couldn't do it without you, and we appreciate your patience, your guidance, your understanding, and your support, and we look forward to a very successful 2024 working with you. So if there's any questions I can answer for the Commission, please let me know. Otherwise, that's the end of my report.
Anything else? No? All right, we'll go ahead and adjourn to the next Planning Commission on January 10th, 2024. See you all next year.
Good job.